All right, let's dive in. If you've ever thought about building things for the web but had no idea where to even start, you're in the perfect spot. Today, we're going on a quest. Think of this as your complete roadmap, your guide to becoming a full-stack developer. So let's get going. So every adventure has a starting point, right? For web development, it often feels like you're dropped into the middle of a huge, tangled forest. You've got all these different paths, all these different signs, and it's super easy to feel lost before you've taken a single step. The biggest question is always, where on earth do I begin? Sound familiar? I bet it does. You start hearing all these words: JavaScript, Python, React, databases, APIs, the cloud. It's like a blizzard of buzzwords coming at you from every direction. If you're feeling overwhelmed, just know that's totally normal. Pretty much everyone starts out feeling that way. But that feeling of being lost, it ends today. What we've got here is your treasure map. We're going to cut right through all that noise and lay out a clear, step-by-step path that takes you from the absolute basics all the way to professional level skills. The goal, to turn that confusion into confidence. Okay, let's get into phase 1, forging the fundamentals. Just like any good craftsperson, you need your core set of tools. These are the absolute non-negotiables. This is the foundation that everything, and I mean everything else you build, is going to stand on. So let's break down this toolkit. It all starts at the top, just understanding how the internet actually works. How does your browser talk to a server? Then you've got the big three. HTML is the skeleton. It gives a web page its structure. CSS is the skin and clothes. It adds all the style, the colors, the layouts. And JavaScript? Well, JavaScript is the brain and muscles. It makes the page come alive with interactivity. And last but not least, Git and GitHub. This is like a time machine for your code. It's absolutely crucial for tracking your changes and working with other people. Seriously, these 5 skills are your rock-solid foundation. All right, we've gathered our tools. Now we move on to phase 2, crafting user experiences. This is the front end. It's everything the user actually sees, clicks on, and interacts with. This is where we take those raw materials, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and start building something that looks and feels amazing. Now, to really get good at the front end, you've got to level up a bit. This means learning modern CSS tools like Flexbox and Grid. These let you build really complex layouts that look great on any device, from a giant monitor to a tiny phone. It also means diving into modern JavaScript features like async await, which help you do things like grab data from a server without freezing the whole page. And then you have to make a really big decision. You've got to choose a front-end framework. And when it comes to frameworks, these are the 3 big names you're going to hear everywhere: React, Vue, and Angular. As you can see, React.js is by far the most popular choice right now. And while they're all fantastic tools, React's popularity means more job postings and a massive community to help you when you get stuck. The real takeaway here isn't that one is the best. It's that you should just pick one, whether it's React or something else, and really dive deep. So, we've built this beautiful interactive website. But what makes it actually work? That brings us to phase 3, the backend. This is the hidden engine room. It's the server, the database, the logic. It's the brains of the whole operation that you never see, but you definitely notice if it was gone. Now, the backend path might seem intimidating, but you can really boil it down to 3 simple steps. First, pick a language. You could stick with what you know and use Node.js, which is just JavaScript on a server, or you could try something different like Python. Second, you learn a framework for that language, like Express or Django. Think of frameworks as pre-built kits that save you from having to build everything from scratch. And third, you master a database. This is where all your app's data is going to live. And speaking of databases, there are 2 main flavors you'll run into. On the left, you've got SQL databases. The easiest way to think about these is like a perfectly organized spreadsheet. Everything has a place in neat rows and columns. It's perfect for structured data. On the right, you've got NoSQL. This is more like a flexible folder. You can just toss in different kinds of documents without a strict structure. Which one is better? Well, it completely depends on what kind of data your project needs to handle. So, how do the front end and back end actually talk to each other? Well, they use something called an API. You can think of it as a messenger. The front end sends a request to the API, like, hey, can you get me this user's profile? The API takes that message to the back end, which finds the data, and then uses the API to send it right back. It's the critical link that connects the 2 halves of your application. We've made it to the final phase of our quest, becoming a full-stack master. This is where you go from just knowing how to build things to being a true professional. Phase 4 is all about the skills that make your application strong, secure, and ready for the real world. This checklist right here, this is what separates the hobbyists from the pros. First, deployment. That's just the fancy word for putting your app on the internet so people can actually use it. Second, testing. You're basically writing code to check your other code. It's how you catch bugs before your users do. Third, security. This is all about building walls to protect your app and your users from bad actors. And finally, CI/CD. It sounds complicated, but it just means automating your testing and deployment so you can release updates faster and more reliably. Mastering these is a total game changer. So after all this learning, after all these phases, what's the ultimate proof that you've got the skills? This quote says it all. Your projects are your resume. You can read every article and watch every tutorial, but nothing, and I mean nothing, speaks louder than a real, working project that you built. Your portfolio is what shows the world you can do the job. And that brings our roadmap to an end. You have the map. You know the way. The path forward is clear. The quest is now officially yours to continue. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build first?